Hey Sheridan, I wanted to do a quick little video for you to go over those two questions that you posted that you were still having trouble with on page 135. So the first one was number 28, which was the square root of 1 minus x minus 3 equals x plus 2. Okay. So remember when you're solving radical equations, the first thing that you want to do is you want to get the radical by itself. So I'm circling that. I want to get this by itself. So I need to move whatever is close to this to the other side. So I'm going to add a 3. And remember, this is going to go underneath the 2. Okay. So you're left with the square root of 1 minus x equals x plus 5. Right. Now notice I have my radical by itself. So what we do is we want to get rid of the radical. And the way that we do that is if this is a square root, then we square it. And whatever we do to one side, we must do to the other side. Okay. And you end up with 1 minus x equals x plus 5. And I'm going to rewrite this as x plus 5, right? Because x plus 5 squared means x plus 5 times x plus 5. And then we need to simplify this, okay? And so we can do our FOIL or we can do our box like I showed you guys in class. And you get x and a 5 and an x and a 5, okay? And so you get x times x is x squared, 5 times x is 5x, 5 times x is 5x, and the 5 times 5 is 25. And so we can rewrite that as x squared, and we know 5x and 5x make 10x plus 25 equals our 1 minus x. Now, remember, we talked about in class, when you look at this and you see this x squared here, you should automatically think, oh, this is a quadratic, okay? And how do we solve quadratics? We always set it equal to 0. So that means I need to move what is on this side over here so that it's equal to 0. So I can move the 1, so I subtract 1, and I can add the x. Okay, and so now those both cancel and I'm left with 0 equals x squared plus 11x plus 24. Okay, and now the last step is to solve this. We can solve it by putting it in the calculator. We can solve it by graphing. We can solve it by quadratic formula or factoring. To me, factoring would be the easiest one because this is an x squared. So I know that's going to break up into x and x. And I want two numbers that multiply to give me 24, but add to give me 11. And so when I think about that, I think about 8 times 3 gives me 24, and 8 plus 3 gives me positive 11. Okay. And so I factored that. And now the last step is to set each piece equal to 0 and solve. And so we subtract 8, get x equals negative 8, and subtract 3, and we get x equals a negative 3. Now again, remember what I talked about in class, you have to check your answers because there may be an extraneous solution. If I plug negative 8 into the original, 1 minus negative 8 minus 3, is that equal to negative 8 plus 2? Okay, so that's going to give you a square root of 9 minus 3. What's the square root of 9? Square root of 9 is 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. Is 0 equal to negative 8 plus 2? That would be a negative 6. So that's not going to work. Okay, then we need to try negative 3. The square root of 1 minus negative 3 minus 3, is that equal to negative 3 plus 2? Okay, that's going to give you the square root of 4. Square root of 4, that's 2. 2 minus 3, is that going to equal to negative 3 plus 2? That's equal to negative 1. That's equal to negative 1. Yes. So the only answer here for this one would be a negative 3. Okay. All right. And then the other question that you have is question 34. And this one's more of a difficult question. Okay. And we did one of these in class. I'm not sure if this was the exact one. Square root of 3x plus 7 plus the square root of x plus 2 equal to 1. And remember we talked about in class where you have two of these like that. The easiest thing to do is to move one of these over to the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this one over. And so now we end up with the square root of 3x plus 7 equals 1 minus the square root of x plus 2. And now really the only thing we can do is try to get rid of the radical. And so we square both sides. So I square this side and I square this side. And remember, this is going to be written as 1 minus the square root of x plus 2 times 1 minus the square root of x plus 2. Okay. And that's equal to 3x plus 7. Because remember, when you square a square root, it goes away. And remember, I told you guys for this one, you have to do your FOIL. You have to do your box. Okay, I'm going to draw my box over here. We have a 1 and negative square root of x plus 2, a 1 and negative square root of x plus 2. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times a negative becomes a negative square root of x plus 2. Same thing for this, a negative square root of x plus 2. And a negative times a negative becomes a positive. And then these are twice, so you end up with just that x plus 2. Okay? And so your simplified needs to read 1. A negative and a negative make 2 negatives. And then you're left with your x plus 2 on the end. All right. Now, again, our goal to solve this is to get rid of the radical, right? So right now, what we need to do is we need to move everything on one side that does not have a radical. And here's our radical right here, okay? So we need to move everything away from it. So I have a 1 and a 2, which make a 3, right? And then I have a minus 2 square root of x plus 2. I'm not touching that. And then I have a plus x. So what I just did there is I combined the 1 and the 2, okay? And it's a positive, so that's why I added them. All right, now I need to move, again, I want to get this by itself. So I need to move the 3 over and I need to move the x over. This is a positive 3, so we subtract 3. This is a positive x, so we subtract x. And you get 2x plus 4 equals negative 2 square root of x plus 2. Okay. And then the last thing we do is, again, well, it's not the last thing, but we have to get rid of the radical. So we square this side and we square this side. And so this becomes 2x plus 4 times 2x plus 4. And then this is the same thing as, right, we write it twice, times negative 2 square root of x plus 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 becomes a positive 4. And then these are being squared, so that's just going to be left with the x plus 2. And then we can FOIL or box that side. Go back over that. 2x positive 4, 2x positive 4. 2x times 2x gives you a 4x squared. 2x times 4 gives you 8x. 4 times 2x, 8x. 4 times 4 is 16. 4x squared, 8x and 8x make a 16x. And then the last part over here, we distribute, and that becomes 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 2 is 8. And then again, just like with the last problem, I notice here there's an x squared, right? So that means it's a quadratic, so we want to get it equal to 0. So I need to move all of this part over to the left. So I subtract 4x, and I subtract an 8. And so that's 4x squared plus 12x plus 8 equals 0. And then I'm going to do another page. 4x squared plus 12x plus 8. So we have 4x squared plus 12x plus 8 equals 0. And then we can solve this by factoring or quadratic formula or graphing. There's a GCF on this one of 4. So I bring out the 4. I'm left with 4 times x squared gives you 4x squared. 4 times 3x gives you 12x. And then the 4 times 2. Okay. And then we just need to factor that part. And I want two numbers that multiply to give you 2, but add to give you 3. And that would be a 2 and a 1, right? And so this becomes x plus 2 times x plus 1 equals 0. You don't really have to worry about the 4 anymore. And you set those equal to your 0. And we get x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 1. Okay. Now remember, our original equation was the square root of 3x plus 7 plus the square root of x plus 2 equals 1. So again, we have to check our answer. And so we take negative 2 and plug it back in. The square root of 3 times negative 2 plus 7 plus the square root of negative 2 plus 2. Is that equal to 1? 3, that's a negative 6 plus 7. That's going to be the square root of 1 plus the square root of 0. The square root of 0 is just 0. Square root of 1 is 1. So 1 equals 1. That looks like it works. And then we try the negative one, 3 times negative 1 plus 7 plus square root of negative 1 plus 2. Is that equal to 1? That's going to be a negative 3 plus 7. That's the square root of 4, which is 2. And this is going to be the square root of 1, which is 1. Is 2 plus 1 equal to 1? No. So the 1 does not work, but the negative 2 works. So you would just put negative 2 as your answer. Let me know if there's any other things that you need help with. And I'm going to post this in the discussion for you to take a look at, all right, as a video.